Welcome to What Really Matters podcast, Everyday Spirituality with Karen Wyatt. Thanks for joining me here today. As you can probably hear in my voice, I have a bit of a cold today, so I hope that's not too annoying for you to listen to me talk. But I want to share this episode because I'm talking about creativity and grief. And I wrote about this on a post in Soul Code. And then also this week on the End of Life University podcast, I'm featuring an interview with the Good Listening Project, where we talk about listener poets who hear other people's stories and write poems for them. So another idea of using creativity as a healing force. In today's episode, I'm going to feature a number of lines of poetry from the amazing poet Andrea Gibson, who just died a few months ago of ovarian cancer. And I'm really eager to share their poetry, which is so amazing, much of which was written during the last 4 years of when this journey through ovarian cancer took place. And so as they approach the end of life, the creative power that was expressed through Andrea's poetry is just truly amazing and inspiring. And if you haven't read any of it, I encourage you to look it up online, to buy their books and check out some of these beautiful poems. So I'll be featuring some lines from Andrea's poetry as we go through this episode today. But first, I'll tell you just a little bit about Andrea. Andrea was an award-winning poet and spoken word artist known for writing with raw honesty about love, loss, identity, and the human condition. In 2021, they were diagnosed with ovarian cancer and continued to write and perform while living with that reality. During those final years, their poetry became even more luminous, facing death not with fear, but with fierce tenderness and wonder. Andrea was named Poet Laureate of Colorado in 2023 and used their platform to remind us that grief and beauty can coexist, that art can hold both grief and beauty. Andrea died in July 2025 at the age of 49, leaving behind poems that speak as much to life as to what lies beyond it. And so Andrea's entire life is an inspiration that speaks to us of the creativity that becomes possible when we endure loss and grief in our lives. This became evident to me on my trip through Italy that I wrote about in the book Wild and Holy, how so much of Italy's beautiful art and architecture was shaped through loss and the grieving that comes after loss. The artistic inspiration of so many of Italy's renowned Renaissance artists often came as a result of grief they had lived with for years and years. So it became clear to me that hidden within the pain and the sorrow of grief, there is this opportunity for creativity to emerge. And sometimes I see it as grief cracks us open in a way, but it is through those cracks that creativity pours out. And I'll read to you a few lines from Andrea Gibson. It's turning the thunder into grace, knowing sometimes the break in your heart is like the hole in the flute. Sometimes it's the place where the music comes through. And that's from a poem titled The Madness Vase. So while loss is a necessary part of life, loss continues to happen throughout life. Grief is an opportunity to turn loss into something beautiful, into music and art, if we face it and go through the challenge of it. In Italy, I had the chance to see the works of an artist, Caravaggio, who I was not familiar with before, but he was a master of using a technique called chiaro oscuro, which means light, dark, and it's the use of selective areas of light within a painting that are surrounded by darker areas so that the eye is drawn to the area of light. And the darkness forms a background for the light and makes what is painted in the light much more visible and noticeable. And as soon as I heard that concept and saw some of Caravaggio's paintings, I realized this is really how grief is. It is the dark background that helps us view and appreciate the light and the love of life. So there's this ongoing tension between the light and the dark, between joy and sorrow, between life and death. And we live within that tension, and it's really our learning experience to find out how to carry both sides of the tension and be aware of both. And Andrea Gibson wrote a poem called How the Worst Day of My Life Became My Best, again highlighting that tension between what's bad and what is good and how we live within it, in the midst of it. Andrea wrote, "You tilt your head back, you breathe when your heart is broken, you plant seeds in the cracks, and you pray for rain, and you teach your sons and daughters there are sharks in the water, but the only way to survive is to breathe deep and dive." I love this image describing how we actually need to go even further into the depths of our pain, of our grief, of our suffering, in order to really find the opportunity there for healing and growth and creativity that can occur. And another line from Andrea's poem, "When I realized the storm was inevitable, I made it my medicine." I love this thought of alchemizing the storms and the pains and the disasters of life, turning them into medicine that can help us heal and grow and become our best selves. So grief itself can become a fertile ground for our creativity, for new emergence, for new ideas and thoughts to spring from. Think again of the metaphor of the butterfly. I've talked about this a lot, but the caterpillar weaves a chrysalis around itself, and then the caterpillar dissolves away in what can only be described as a total disaster for the caterpillar. And yet, the imaginal cells that remain behind are nourished by that disaster, by the crisis of the caterpillar dissolving away. And those imaginal cells group together to become the new emergence, the butterfly that is to form. And so, in this way, loss precedes amazing transformation. And as soon as we recognize it and begin to embrace that idea, we stop resisting loss, resisting pain and grief, and begin to be able to carry them with us and face them directly. And that's when we can really harvest the most creativity possible from these experiences that life has brought to us. Another image that comes to mind when we look at grief as a creative force is the idea that it's not just an emotional experience, but it is an event that burns away what no longer serves us and illuminates new inner landscapes. And so grief dismantles parts of our ego. It takes down the ego's attachments to things that don't really matter. And that is what makes space for new creativity and new emergence to come. And it reminds me of in Italy, one thing that I learned about and was interested in is Mount Vesuvius, the volcano that erupted and buried Pompeii and Herculaneum so long ago. But that people live in the foothills of Mount Vesuvius and live on the volcanic soil and ash. And it turns out the San Marzano tomatoes that are so prized in Italy for their flavor and their beauty can only be grown in the volcanic soil around Mount Vesuvius. And they're protected by the state because they're so rare and so wonderful. And when you think of it, the devastation and destruction brought about by that volcano also provided, once again, this rich, fertile ground for something new to grow. The tomatoes, and then there are also grapes that specifically grow in the volcanic soil and form very unique wines. Volcanic wines, they're called, that again can only be created from the grapes that grow in that soil and can only be found in that region. And Andrea Gibson has a line from a poem that suits this metaphor as well. Remind me that the most fertile lands were built by the fires of volcanoes. And so the lesson is that we need the fire. We need to go through the fire in order to purify and clarify everything that matters and to create this nourishing environment in which creativity can flourish. And the Renaissance bears evidence of that, which took place in Italy about 100 years after the Black Death ravaged the population of Italy and all of Europe, taking the lives of at least half of the citizens of Italy lost in that devastating plague that swept through Europe. It took many, many years, in fact, probably an entire century, to recover from the plague. And yet the Renaissance in Italy was the result. And this amazing creativity that emerged, but also a brand new higher stage of consciousness for humankind emerged from that tragedy. And when we embrace grief and allow our own creativity to emerge inspired by that grief, we have a new way of connecting with others around us, a new way of connecting not just through the pain, but through the inspiration that is provided by what we are creating in the world and bringing to the world. And it can have this amazing ripple effect as other people are also inspired to dig into their own creativity as a result of the pain that they're experiencing. And this opportunity to increase our interconnectedness with other people is exactly what is needed right now in our society. So many people are feeling isolated and separate from everyone else in the world and different from everyone else in the world. And yet it is our grief that we share. We share it with everyone. Our broken hearts are shared, and the pain we carry for all of us. And our creativity is the one thing that can reach across those borders and create inspiration and provide hope and aspiration and transformative ideas for others from which to grow as well. And so it's essential that we remember how to use our creativity as a way to connect with others, even as we acknowledge that we're all carrying the same grief. And Andrea Gibson wrote, "What I know about living is the pain is never just ours. Every time I hurt, I know the wound is an echo. So I keep listening for the moment the grief becomes a window, when I can see what I couldn't see before." I absolutely love that image, to be able to see what you couldn't see before. That's what's essential about going through the grief process, allowing creativity to emerge, is this ability to see something new. We begin to recognize patterns and synchronicities, and again, the connectedness that we have with other people that may have been invisible to us before. So carrying our grief, allowing our creativity to emerge, it's essential for coming together in wholeness as humankind, to begin to work together, to begin to search together for solutions to the problems that are facing our world today. So as I close this short episode, I ask you to think about your own creativity and how can you utilize creativity even in the midst of grief in order to give expression fully to the pain that you feel, but also the beauty that is emerging at the same time. Can you journal? Can you do any sort of writing, painting, drawing, sketching? even creating a walking meditation for yourself, making an altar in your home that's beautiful with flowers and photos and candles. Those are all acts of creativity. Maybe even making a mandala outdoors that you know will disappear. That's an act of creative impermanence in a way, celebrating the fact that nothing lasts and everything changes, but creative nonetheless. So think about one creative act you might be able to do today, and perhaps a few times a week, bring more creativity into your day-to-day life. And remember that you don't have to be skilled at any of these things to be creative. It is your inner nature to create and to make things. And maybe you do it through baking or cooking, or maybe just the way that you arrange the art on the walls in your home. You have creativity whether you're aware of it or not, and you don't have to be an expert or be skilled. You simply have to listen to what wants to come through you. And Andrea Gibson wrote, "Wrap yourself in light, then give yourself away with your heart, your brush, your march, your art, your poetry, your play." And I think that's just beautiful, this image of wrapping yourself in light, even when you're hurting and broken and carrying pain within. Wrap yourself in the light and be willing to give away whatever it is that emerges, whatever it is you manage to create. Because following this pathway of your grief, it's really a doorway to beauty and to healing and to the deeper meaning of life that you've been seeking. So I hope you'll feel inspired to utilize your own creativity as we move forward through this next week. And I'd love to hear about whatever it is you decide to create. And until next week, remember we're here for love, and that means we're also here for grief. So face your fear, be ready for whatever life brings your way, and love each and every moment of your very precious life. Bye-bye.